Welcome to the channel. This is TechnoScope.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Project Sledgehammer build. This is episode 4, the actual assembly. I have here in front of me the Asus Z10PE D16WS, which stands for Workstation motherboard. The episode 1 actually covers this board, so if you want to know more about it, go ahead and see that. One thing I didn't show before or really talk about are the two CPUs right here. These two CPUs are a OEM version of the 2699, which is an 18 core per CPU, per die CPU. It's hyper-threading. It's hyper-threaded, which means you get effectively 36 cores per CPU. And together they will combine to make effectively 72 cores, which is great for rendering, great for video production, things like that. The best chip that you can get at the moment. Each one has 45 megabytes of L3 cache, and each one is fully utilized 40 lanes PCI Express in the board. It takes full uses all 80 combined PCI Express lanes. DDR4 quad channel, and I have the memory and everything for that. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and assemble this. So the first step is to move this over here and to take out the motherboard tray from the Case Labs case. Okay, and just that easily, it comes right out. Now, one thing I will say that I didn't mention before, this motherboard tray has this hidden area on the bottom, which allows you to mount either 4 2.5-inch drives, SSDs, Q+, whatever you may have, or 2 3.5-inch drives, and you can put them in there, and that will be in addition to the 8 3.5-inch drive, 3.5-inch slots that I have over there. Those were optional, so if you don't want to fork over the money for those optional 3.5-inch bays, 1 or 2 3.5-inch drives, or 2 2.5s and 1 3.5, or 4 2.5s, all go right here. You don't even have to spend the money for those if you don't need it. I do. Like I said, I'm about as power user as it comes. So let's go ahead and we'll mount that. First, I'm gonna go ahead and stick this in the case so that I'm not trying to do that later. In case you want to know, these motherboard standoffs are 5mm. I actually ordered a tool specifically for that, and it turned out to be the wrong size because I got bad information off the internet. Who knew? Only use the tool to make it easier. Do not over tighten these because they will strip. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and install the DIMMs. According to the manual for dual CPUs using 8 DIMMs, you want to stick it in every slot labeled 1. So A1, B1, C1, D1, E1, and so on to 8 slots. And they're opposing. So on this side, 2, 1, 2, 1. And on this side is 2, 1, 2, 1 going that way. Interesting. Alright, so this first one will go in A1. So in other words, all the gray slots are getting RAM chips. Oh. Yeah, all the gray ones are getting gray slots. They're labeled differently on the edges than they are in the middle of the board. It's kind of weird. Kind of weird because I'm not used to having DIMM slots with only one lever on one side. My present PC is 7 years old, so this might have been something they've changed since then. I don't know about it because it's been a long time since I've built a high-end PC. Let's see, A2. Didn't notice they flipped the other way. Alright, so we have the RAM slots in, and they are secured. It's all 8 of them. Now I'll go ahead and put the heat sinks on. Look at this. Glad I pulled this fan off. Look at this. There's cardboard in there. I pulled that off. Problem. I might have to do it the way they said and put it this way. I didn't want to do that, but looks like that's what's going to have to happen. I'm going to have them turn this way. They're not going to fit side by side. I was hoping that they would, but it looks like they won't. These CPUs don't have any thermal compound on them, but I want to use the purifier anyway. Let's go ahead and clean them. Number one, because it's supposed to be better for them. And number two, I paid like $8 for that stuff, and I don't really know if it works or not. As far as I know, these heatsinks come with their own compound and everything, but I'm going to be using this right here. Antec Formula 7 nano diamond thermal compound. I have no clue if this is any better than the Arctic Silver that most people use, but I've used it with great results, so only the best for Project Sledgehammer. Normally I do the spread method where I put the paste on there and use something like a credit card or something to smooth it evenly. But I've heard that that actually will increase your chance of having like an air bubble and cause the CPU to run hotter than normal. And basically just about any other method is better. That method works good if you can get it thin enough and you can do it without air bubbles, but apparently it's not the way to go. Some people say the P. I'm going to use the X simply because of how huge the dies are on this on these CPUs. It should be straightforward, unlike some other heatsink installations, because the 2011 just simply uses screws. I'm not really sure where Noctua thinks these things are going. I guess maybe they're this long for people using fan controllers. I don't know. Definitely not for the headers on the board. This is a huge board. This is a huge motherboard, but even these cables are ridiculously long for it. Take that back. Just realized I'm replacing the fans. That's why the cables are so long. Okay, now that we got the heat sinks on, we've got the memory in. The only other thing to put on the board before we put it in is the SSD. Our Samsung 950 Pro M.2 drive. These things are so tiny. Look at this. That is ridiculously small. This thing is teeny tiny, and yet this is one of the fastest SSDs on the market. Wow. And the last thing to go on this board before we install it. This is the TPM module. This allows me to encrypt the boot drive and any other drive I want on the computer. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go ahead and put the motherboard inside the case and mount that, and then we're going to start running wires and loading up the case with everything else. I guess we'll go ahead and put the other cards in there while we're at this point. After the USB card is going to be these bad boys, or at least one of them. And now that this card is in here, you should have a better understanding of just how big this motherboard is. If you haven't figured it out by now, all this stuff that I'm putting on here is exactly why I wanted a case that had a horizontal layout for the board. This is a lot of weight. And believe it or not, people do this, put all this weight on vertical setups, but that's ridiculous. Hopefully this layout will give me will give me more longevity to use this case, since nothing's going to be pulling on the PCB like it does in other cases. I wasn't planning on the video card to be covering these connections. Kind of unfortunate, but luckily there's 6 more SATAs over there, and those 2 will give me 8, so I should be okay with that. But I'm probably going to have to remove this card to run the wires that go to those bottom connectors there. One thing I don't understand about how they manufacture motherboards is why do they print the front audio connectors on the back of the board? Front audio is on the back. There go all my wire management hopes and dreams down the drain. Wire management is going to be a pain in the ass on this. God, wow. I could add another pair of USB ports, but since their wiring is white and they're ugly, I'm going to forgo that one. They're only USB 2.0, so. I think that's everything on the front line. VGA, COM1. USB 2.0. It's a good thing this thing's got so many fan headers, I don't have to worry about that. I think that's everything but the fans and the power supply. And of course the hard drive, or SSDs. Put this back in there.
Is a Twisted Curve production.